Isn't it great when we go full circle? Depending on where you started, handhelds have done that the past couple weeks. A lot of Nintendo Switch players are previous handheld gamers from the PlayStation Vita ecosystem. Now that the Nintendo Switch has an OLED model, we truly have come full circle. We went from an OLED Vita to the LCD Slim, the LCD Nintendo Switch, and now back to OLED. I've had the unit for about a week and a half, so let's get started. Here is my review of the Nintendo Switch OLED model. The biggest question I've seen online and around the Best Buy store I work at are the differences between the Switch at $300 and the OLED at $350. So let's begin there. Most of the design has not changed. The main internal difference between this and the V2 is the fact that the OLED has 64GB of internal storage versus 32. The biggest difference is, of course, the OLED screen. The unit is the same size as the OG and V2 models but sports a 7-inch OLED versus the 6.2-inch LCD. Side by side, they made the bezel incredibly small in comparison. It's got so massive of a difference that it's amazing the large bezel from the previous models wasn't more apparent. Now the Joy-Cons aren't any different, so we'll take just a moment to take a look at the top of the device. The placement of these buttons hasn't changed, but they're more retracted into the shelf, feeling more like they're just a part of that smooth edge. Then we get to the back of the unit with the other major change. The air vents are gone, and in place is a huge kickstand now as wide as the entire unit. This is flexible and customizable from barely being out from the unit at all the way to a 135-degree angle. It's really stable, even more so than the Insignia and Rocketfish extended play packs that I covered in the past. And a bit more minor, but under this kickstand is the SD card slot, slightly moved so you can put the card in horizontally instead of vertically. Finally on design is the dock. It is a lot more curve heavy in its outer frame and shell, and it swapped out some ports. In the back, the door cover can be easily taken out and removed, and it actually does that every time you try to open it instead of having that hinge. Looking a little closer back here, the USB port has been removed and swapped out for an Ethernet jack. We'll go into that a little bit more later. That's all I've got for design, so let's go into how it performs and looks. The OLED screen is very noticeable from the get-go. It has significantly deeper shades of colors, especially darks like blacks and reds. It looks absolutely gorgeous, especially if you're playing a nicely optimized game. Dragon Ball FighterZ is what really showed it off for me. The 2D art style and effects really look beautiful in handheld mode. Interestingly enough, on the software side, the OLED model has a new setting where you can change it between vivid and standard color mode. Standard is a bit less deep and meant to mimic an LCD screen, though the colors still look deeper than on the previous models. Now let's talk about that Ethernet jack. You can hardwire connection, and while I haven't personally used USB adapters on the previous model, it definitely makes a difference. My main test on day one was done with my internet already under a lot of stress from my PS4, phone, and laptop. While it being stressed like that, my Switch OLED on Wi-Fi was able to pull a download speed of 10, but the moment I started using the hardwire connection, that 10 shot up to 16. My upload speed didn't really change between the two methods, but the download speed consistently gets a nice boost. And now is the big section, battery life. You might remember that I posted battery readings for Knockout Home Fitness that were actually below the V2's readings, and I mentioned later on Twitter that I had a download going that screwed those readings up. Oddly enough, that download didn't screw the readings up at all. So let's go into the fairly inconsistent mileage you're gonna get here. Most games get more battery on this model than any of the others, but there are a few exceptions, namely Knockout Home Fitness and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. To give you a few examples, on the V2, Doom Eternal on maximum settings gets about 4 hours and 7 minutes, while the OLED gets 5 hours and 36. Dragon Ball FighterZ on the V2 max settings gets 5 hours and 4 minutes, while the OLED gets 5 hours and 10. Overwatch on the V2 is 3 hours and 52, while the OLED gets 4 hours and 52. Smash Ultimate gets 7 hours and 2 on the V2 with 6 hours and 33 on the OLED. And the classic Zelda Breath of the Wild on the V2 gets 4 hours and 54, while the OLED gets 6 hours and 3. As we wrap this up, is the OLED absolutely necessary for Switch owners? No, not really. Many things it does you can do on previous models with the right accessories and adapters, but this model packs a lot of those quality of life improvements into the package, and the OLED screen is absolutely gorgeous, from the gigantic bezel difference to the deeper and prettier colors. While it is a bit strange that the battery life is a bit inconsistent with certain games, if you can find one and play in handheld a lot, it is a visual spectacle. Reviews to Go rates the Nintendo Switch OLED model a 9.5 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching and have a great day.